Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 2 of IORG's Youth Protection Training. For this module, you won't need to have any additional papers nearby. We are going to focus on maltreatment and prevention. I apologize in advance to those of you who are mandated reporters, as I'm sure this is going to be quite more of a review for you than any new knowledge. We'll be talking about several different things, some of which focuses on the way we treat each other, some focuses on addressing boundaries that we need to have in order to manage the way others treat us. Some types of abuse are emotional, mental, or relational. Others are physical. In either event, it's important to understand and to know how to prevent any kind of maltreatment from occurring. Here are the topics that we will be covering. While legal definitions may vary from state to state, child maltreatment is generally considered to be an act or series of acts by someone responsible for a child's welfare that result in harm or potential harm to a child. Abusive behaviors are deliberate and intentional, although harm to a child may or may not be the intended consequence. Think about potential harm and what that might include. How could abuse be deliberate and harm not be intended? So now we are going to talk about the specific types of maltreatment. Physical abuse is the intentional use of physical force that results or could result in physical injury, including, but not limited to, hitting, kicking, biting, pushing, or pulling. Child sexual abuse includes any sexual contact between an adult and a child, with or without force or deception, and regardless of whether the child understands the sexual nature of the activity. Sexual activity between an older and younger child can also be considered abusive if there is a significant difference in age or size, which would render the younger child incapable of consent. Sexual abuse includes any attempted or completed sexual act or contact, and also non-contact acts, which expose a child to sexual activity, such as exhibitionism or pornography. Psychological abuse, or emotional abuse, is the intentional effort to belittle, intimidate, terrorize, isolate, or demean a child by conveying that he or she is worthless, flawed, unloved, unwanted, endangered, or otherwise unworthy. Neglect is the failure to meet needs of a child's well-being, such as adequate nutrition, shelter, clothing, medical care, or education. Emotional neglect is when a child is denied emotional responsiveness. Harassment includes the repeated, unwelcome conduct that is insulting, degrading, or offensive, creating unpleasant or hostile situations with uninvited and unwelcome verbal or physical contact. Bullying is a form of aggressive behavior in which someone intentionally and repeatedly causes another person injury or discomfort in the form of physical contact, words, or more subtle actions like social exclusion or spreading rumors. Typically, the person being bullied has not caused the bullying and may have difficulty defending herself because of a real or perceived power imbalance. Cyberbullying is similar, but obviously involves social media outlets and internet use, sending hurtful or threatening emails, instant messages, spreading rumors, or posting embarrassing photos through other social media outlets. The term cyberbullying is reserved for minors hurting other minors. If it involves adults, it is called cyberstalking or cyber harassment. Definitions of harassment and bullying sometimes overlap, but not all bullying is harassment and vice versa. Under federal civil rights laws, harassment is unwelcome conduct based on a protected class, such as race, national origin, color, sex, age, disability, or religion, that is severe, pervasive, or persistent and creates a hostile environment. Hazing is the practice of abusive or humiliating rituals used as a means of initiation into a group and is strictly prohibited in Masonic youth organizations. Increasingly, research has shown that individuals who experience maltreatment as youth are at risk for a broad range of challenges, including negative physical, academic, and mental health issues, as well as physical health complaints, depression, and anxiety, which may persist into adulthood. A recent study has confirmed that children who are bullied remain at risk for a variety of poor health, social, and economic outcomes decades after exposure, extending previous findings to midlife. It has also been found that those who harass others may themselves experience continued difficulties into adulthood, including substance abuse, fighting, vandalizing property, academic difficulties, and abuse towards their romantic partners or spouses and their children. Even bystanders who observe abusive behaviors have increased mental health problems, including depression and anxiety. Overall, the consequences for abuse are long-term for the victim, the abuser, and the bystander. Indicators are like red flags that something may be wrong. However, it is important not to jump to conclusions over an isolated incident. Use observations as an opportunity to explore if someone is okay or needs help of any kind. Some indicators of abuse are patterns of bruises or injuries, frequent accidents, sudden weight gain or loss, and behavioral changes. Also, inappropriate behaviors such as stealing, running away, truancy, or acting out in school. Lack of knowledge has led to many misconceptions about abuse. Abuse does occur throughout all communities and neighborhoods. Child abusers come from all walks of life and look like ordinary people. Abuse occurs throughout all communities, all classes, races, and socioeconomic lines. Most children do not tell because abusers are skilled in making children fearful to talk about what is happening to them. Children are always the victims of abuse, although offenders may try to shift the blame. It's still considered abuse if the act that causes the injury is intentional. Most child sexual abuse is perpetrated by someone the child knows and trusts, and there are no overt characteristics that identify an abuser. In fact, child molesters may rely on our assumptions to deliberately gain access to victims. So, if there's no way to tell an abuser by looking, how can we make ourselves safe? Prevention is how we make ourselves and others safe. Awareness is essential. We don't need to be fearful, we just need to be mindful of behaviors and boundaries. Our youth protection policy and code of conduct discussed in Module 1 helps us create that safe framework. Protective factors have been shown to significantly increase the resiliency of youth when they later encounter adverse situations. Freedom from fear. Youth need to feel that not only physically secure, but also emotionally safe. Criticism should always be constructive and focus on behaviors rather than the person. Bullying is not to be permitted. Youth should never fear someone's wrath. A supportive community helps. In keeping with the lessons of Rainbow, youth benefit from the sense of connectedness in activities and appreciate being accepted for who they are. Praise, positive reinforcement of desirable conduct is much stronger than punishment of undesirable actions. Excessive reward is not necessary, but simple praise can be quite powerful. Youth benefit also from learning to make things right, to make restitution when needed, to apologize and seek forgiveness as warranted, to start making things better rather than to sit with guilt or shame. Appropriate positive interactions among youth or between adult leaders and youth support positive youth development and make them feel valued and provide caring connections. Children are naturally open to accepting differences in individuals, yet they quickly absorb bias and prejudice if exposed to it. Learning to accept differences between people helps them mature and prepare for the rich diversity they may face as they enter new areas of life experience. People are also strengthened by the ability to handle situations. giving youth opportunities to try new things or to take on new responsibilities, to handle both success and failure graciously and learn from mistakes, gives them tangible tools for their future. Lastly, youth need to know that adult leaders are on their side and will stand up for their best interests and be advocates for them. There is sometimes a fine line between inappropriate and harmful behaviors. Inappropriate or harmful interactions put youth at risk for negative physical and emotional outcomes, which may last throughout their lives. Appropriate behaviors are, of course, desirable and in keeping with the circumstances of an activity. Conversations and behaviors that are positive, provide caring connections, and foster well-being should be encouraged. Inappropriate behaviors are not harmful per se, but fall short of being appropriate. This may include comments or actions made in jest, or may be the result of thoughtlessness or insensitivity. If something is not obviously harmful, it may be best to give the offending person the benefit of the doubt and suggest being more mindful of his or her remarks or actions in the future. Harmful behaviors, however, include anything that is overtly hurtful, degrading, coercive, sexually suggestive, or invasive of someone's space or privacy. Action should be taken any time harmful behaviors are observed. Whether a behavior is appropriate, inappropriate, or harmful may be based on the circumstances. For example, kissing may be appropriate for older youth, but not appropriate within the confines of the organization. Kissing could even be considered harmful if coercion is involved. Hugging may be appropriate in some circumstances, but can also be inappropriate if someone is not receptive, or it occurs too often or for too long, or if the contact is romanticized or sexualized. Specific reporting procedures are detailed in the Youth Protection Policy, and while it is not necessary to review the particulars at this time, it is important for you to know where to find the information and what the overall expectations are. You should always report to your board chair or to Mrs. Snedden if anything is observed that can cause you to be concerned for a child's welfare. Here are some resources for national hotlines for reporting abuse. In Pennsylvania, we do have PA Childline, which is a resource you can use to contact as well. Thank you for your time, and as always, if you have any questions, please see your board chair, Mrs. Snedden, or contact me directly. Thank you.